those are the people I truly serve. The root of all our evil, it begins with the Federal Reserve. Hey, yeah, well, let's go back in time when everybody was so proud of America.
I'm Tommy Salmons. This is Year Zero. Today, I have the great pleasure of chatting with Shane Hazel as y'all listen to my dogs go crazy in the background because they heard a noise outside. It's probably a fucking cricket. These guys are insane. But we get into, I wanted to talk to Shane Hazel about stuff that he doesn't normally talk about, but is interesting to him. So we get into homesteading a bit, raising children, and also carpentry, and talk a little bit about the skills that go into carpentry, how you can get started learning how to work with wood and not watching Pornhub at the same time. But first, RyanBunting.com. For all of your graphic design needs, go to RyanBunting.com. Ryan Bunting is a great anarcho-capitalist and libertarian. He's also a great graphic designer. And again, my dogs are going fucking berserk. But Ryan Bunting designed my podcast logo and Pete Quinones' podcast logo for Free Man Beyond the Wall. So go to RyanBunting.com for all of your graphic design needs. Thank you, Tom Burton, for the music. Enjoy. All right. I am here with the great Shane Hazel. And I don't mean that as in the Dave Smith version of great. I mean that as in the actual great.
Oh, Dave Smith is pretty good, man.
Yeah, every time Dave Smith calls somebody great, man, he gets shit for it. So I'm trying to avoid all that shit. I don't want to
all the drama and haters in the LP right now. Well, I think we got less than we did last week.
Probably. Yeah, that mess. And I have friends that are involved with the Mises Caucus up in New Hampshire, and they were sending me links to meetings, and I was like, I'm not a socialist, dude. I don't want to be in a meeting.
Yeah, there are different forms of hell, and meetings are definitely of the business type. They are hard to get through.
Oh shit. So how are you doing, man?
Good, man. Staying busy with this Liberty business here. I mean, it's one thing after another, and I don't know, man. The energy is through the roof, and I think with that comes just a lot to do. And so I think I've found myself busier than ever now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's just it. Just seems like the way it goes. The more progress you feel like you're making, the busier you get. It's just like, wait, no. This is the exact opposite of what I had in mind here.
Right. There's no easy times. Like if you're pushing, as hard as you can in this fight, man, there's you're not going to get rich. You're just going to get tired. You're going to get beat up. I mean, you got to be a sadist to want to do this kind of shit, man. And I guess maybe that's why I kind of excel at that kind of stuff. I've been used and abused, and kind of my nature just to take a beating and keep going.
Well, the government trains you to take a beating.
I was pretty stubborn from the get-go, if you ask my parents.
Well, that's kind of one of the things I was thinking of when I wanted to talk to you, because I was like, I want to talk to Shane. He seems like a great dude. He seems like he's a lot of fun to talk to, but everybody's always talking to him about the same fucking bullshit. And I was like, I don't want to talk to somebody about the same thing they've been talking about for the last year, And so, yes, you are the great Georgia spoiler of 2020. Yeah. Great. Okay. Fantastic, dude. The fact of the matter is you failed, because you all these Republicans that are like, didn't you know that you were going to ruin our chances of winning an election? Yeah, I was hoping I was going to ruin both of y'all's chances of winning an
Right?
election. I didn't run for an election, spend all this time and money so I could lose to the fucking Democrats. So it was like, yes, I was halfway there.
Yeah. Only had one other party to beat, man.
Right.
Most of the time it's our own. Yeah, we didn't win. And, I think a lot of people measure success in politics by winning and losing power. And, the nice thing about that for us libertarians is like, man, all I'm trying to do is pick up savages along the way. Like that's all I care about is turn it up to 10, make it higher than they can because they have to deal in PC language and peel people off that are the fucking fighters. And it's like, let's fucking go, guys. Like, we can be loud. And I'll tell you what, loud guys with fucking weapons, man, they scare these people a lot. And that's where freedom comes from. So,
yeah, give me a microphone and half a chance and I'll scare all these motherfuckers.
That's right, man. A little bit at a time. No, it's not that bad. No, it's I think we're doing all right there. I think with what's going on in the movement right now, you're just seeing this giant uptake in people not only wanting to help, the idea of libertarianism, but like no shit, go get some work done. Like I've had more guys come up to me lately and be, girls, what can I help you? And to get people taking action, like making films, doing artwork and all that kind of stuff. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And the amount of people that are motivated to have freedom and the talent that is around us right now is remarkable. I never thought I'd be lumped in with a group of such talented, brilliant people, and to be considered a show that is even, vaguely, influential. It's like, wow, that means a lot to me, So.
Oh yeah, I cannot believe some of the people that you'll be in a sphere with, right? Like, I mean, the guys that kind of really brought me into this movement and applied so much great knowledge and directed me to find the other bits of knowledge, to do your own homework kind of stuff, like the Tom Woods and the Ron Pauls and these kind of guys. Just like, oh man. But I guess you kind of take a step back and you start looking at it and you're like, God, I'm over 40 now, been around, done some things, and it seems like it goes fast, and it's feel like you're a kid a little bit, but to be around with these guys, and there are kids that are 16, 17, 18 years old now that are coming into this, and they're going, look at these dudes, man. Like, they didn't really see Ron Paul in his heyday. They didn't really see, some of those older guys, man. And it's like, yeah, they're looking to, we're getting old is, I guess, kind of what I'm saying is like, it's a neat aspect of life to kind of realize that, yeah, you're not a whippersnapper anymore, but at the same time, now it's like, okay, if you're going to be those guys to those guys, like these younger guys now, you better really bring it, man. And I'm talking about, it's got to be good. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be principled. It's got to be high energy. And to try to corral this, this, I don't know, wild group of Mustangs and horses and everything else, so to speak, it's just like cool to be along for the ride.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. I've told the story a couple of times here recently, so I'm going to cut it short here. But I remember the first time I ever got an article published at the Libertarian Institute. It was sandwiched between Ron Paul and Lou Rockwell. And I was like, what the fuck?
Right.
I don't belong here. Like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah. It's kind of a stunning moment. You're like, boy, more of this would be good. Right. Like, and over time, for maybe those guys out there that are younger listening to this kind of stuff, man, I tweeted about it not too long ago today. Is like, I found a picture of like my first really, rudimentary setup for podcasting. And, I had to like get some clamps out of my wood shop and like clamp a piece of 1x4 to the table so that I could get my mics to clamp onto those things, and like had no space. Oh man, it was, like you take a step, man, and then you take another step, and you just keep on doing, one more thing, learn, one more day, and never give up. And it's like, you can do this kind of shit. And if you start at that age, Jesus, right? Like, you imagine how much further along you'd be.
Oh, no shit. Well, and that was one of the things I've talked about a lot is that I guess our generation, we're both Xers. So our generation, we were pretty apolitical. We didn't really give a fuck about politics until one day we opened our eyes and we're like, wait a second, this shit's like invading my life. Now I got to care, and I was doing perfectly fine just caring about my family and the things I had to do on a daily basis. Now I got to care about this other shit. And I didn't want to care about it. Like, it really never meant anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids grew up in an atmosphere where they always cared about this stuff. And it's something I had talked to Ace and Cotton and Nick about, was like, look, man, y'all are in y'all's early to mid 20s and you're so much further along than I am even today. Like, you're so well read, because I'm still like, I'm 42 years old. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, it's like,
right. Yeah. I'm on the verge of entrepreneurship, right?
My entire dream was to get a fucking, like, to buy enough scrap metal and construct a boat on 4x4s to float in the Atchafalaya and fish for the rest of my life. And here I am on the interwebs.
Yeah, no, I get it, man. I was floating through life in the beginning, kind of just doing the prescribed, murder cult indoctrination bullshit. You go to school, do well, go off to college, do well, perhaps maybe go to the military, do well, settle down, have a family. I was doing, like, I mean, seriously, I was still figuring this stuff out when I was settling down to have a family in my late 20s, right? And so it's like all the extra that these guys are starting out with, is just like, man, that's a really cool place to be when you're in your early 20s. You found a really great crowd of people that wants, the absolute best for you, right? To be free, to have, what you worked for, and to not have to be harassed or, for being a peaceful person. Like, what an amazing place to be for those guys. I mean, and I'll tell you what, they deserve it. They've been kicking ass. So, like,
right. Yeah, no, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, to see these guys this young put in this type of effort and find time, or maybe live without some things at the same time, like, that's really cool.
Yeah, no, they're and like I said, these guys are brilliant. Like, whenever I had Cotton on the other day, and we did a show on capitalist realism, which is a book by Mark Fisher, and I'd never heard of the guy. So he told me about it, and he sent me the audio book, and I was like, all right, I'll listen to it. And I listened to it the first time. I'm like, what the fuck am I going to say about this shit? I don't know what to say about this. So I had to start listening to it a second time so I could get my mind to actually work. Because all I kept thinking was, this guy sounds like Ted Kaczynski, like, so I was like, all right, so how do I talk about this intellectually, like, and act like I have, like, some sort of knowledge on this? And as we're going through it, and I'm talking to Cotton about it, and he's breaking it down, I'm like, dude, do you realize you're only a year older than my oldest son? Like, I have no business on this podcast with you right now.
Yeah. That's I've been in those situations. I think one time I had Jeff Dice on, right? And I'll tell you, I had some technical difficulties in the beginning with it, and Jeff is such a smart, super well read, and the thing is his retention and ability to extrapolate on all of these things cross connectedly is kind of through the roof. And I was like, at that moment I was like, what am I why is Jeff here with me? And I gotta tell you, like he's like one of the guys that in kind of our age bracket that I was like, yeah, man, be more like Jeff. Like, Jeff's one of those, one of the good guys out there that's taken great action within his 40 plus years there, and done some truly amazing things for liberty.
Yeah, no, and it's really cool to be in a position to where we're, like, spotlighting these brains, I mean, that's what they are. They're like walking brains, some of these guys. And it's like, man, okay, I'm glad I can be lumped in with you guys, but dude, I'm a blue collar guy from the get go. I know you are too. And that's part of the reason I wanted to have you on, But I'm like, I'm a blue collar guy from the get go. You know, when I was 17 years old, I was painting cranes for a living. That's what I did. You know, like I've all my jobs have been oil filled. I was in the infantry in the army, and then I've been a truck driver for 18 years. Like, I don't belong with you people. Like, it's just, it's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we kind of stick out. We've got a more colorful sense of humor. We don't get offended by really anything, right? Like the only thing I'm offended by is most of it is from the fucking state. But like outside of that, I'm like, oh, maybe not my kind of humor, but I really don't give a shit. Go tell your jokes. It's fine, right? And
yeah.
So,
every time I see somebody on Twitter getting offended by something somebody said, I just go, yeah, because of words. Words. Fuck it.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know where their parents were growing up, but maybe yours were like mine. Where, you know, it was the old sticks and stones thing, right?
Exactly.
Like, it made sense, right? Like, hey, listen, if they're not like hurting you, who gives a shit? And you should probably be able to laugh at yourself and maybe even make better jokes about yourself in the long run.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's I think also we're kind of like the last of the latchkey kids. So we were out there, you know, if somebody got hit in the head with a baseball bat, we had to figure it out amongst ourselves. There was no
cover it up so mom and dad didn't find out.
Yeah, exactly. There was none of this go get a parent because nobody wanted to deal with a parent.
Yeah. I heard somewhere one time that the 1970s and early 80s kids were some of the least parented kids of all time.
Yeah.
As a generation, you know, I think it's funny to think about. I mean, to think back, you were like, kind of just got on my bike in the very early in the morning and I was gone. And, you know, once in a while, maybe somebody picked up a phone, called the neighbors' houses, you know, where they thought maybe they were, or tracked them down one way or another. And, you know, you came home at dinner sometimes.
Right. And then you had a situation like mine where my mom is only 17 years older than me. So she always says that we raised each other and we're like best friends, you know? So it's like, it was never like there was the discipline, the authority, but it was always, the majority of the time was, we were always being friends. We were always teaching each other shit, always laughing together. It was never like I was ever intimidated or felt like I couldn't say anything or be myself and explore ideas. And so when you look at that situation where like, yeah, that's anarchy, you know, like that's what we were living.
Oh, and you survived. Amazing, isn't it?
Right.
Golly, that's what I was telling my kids the other day. I said, do you know how much more advanced, you know, people were 1,000 years ago than you are? Right. And they're like, what are you talking about? Right. And you start to explain it to them like, hey man, these guys survived without electricity. They survived without indoor plumbing. They survived without supermarkets. They survived without the internet and all these. I mean, and then they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, man, that was like a generation before my grandparents that was doing all this kind of stuff throughout history. And you're like, yeah, what we have done and been able to do is like, we got to this moment in history where we started to make giant advances and all of a sudden the brakes got thrown on us and just like, what the fuck, man? This could have been really, really kick ass had you assholes not gotten involved as much as you have.
Right. Yeah. Now we have a generation that can't survive 5 minutes without a cell phone, you know?
Yeah.
And people are so sensitive nowadays. And it's funny because I have this relationship with my boys, especially because I have 5 kids, but my boys, especially, I have this really like open, like kind of blunt relationship with them. And so like, my ex-wife sent me a picture of my kids, you know, as they're attending her wedding about a month ago, and they're standing together and they're like, one's got his arm around the other and they're both wearing gray shirts and purple ties. And I just took it and I put it through the meme generator. I just wrote fags across their chest and sent it to them, and they just fucking died laughing. You know, it's like, yeah, it's like, boys will be boys, you know, you got to keep them tough.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've got 2 boys and a little girl, and I mean, I try to really kind of handle situations pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
They've all been in jujitsu since they were, 3 years old. So
Right.
it's like, to see, how tough they can be, and then to be able to, because we homeschool, right? Like they're not going out into the universe out there and getting the quote unquote socialization. So there's got to be some of that tough love, that that give and take, when you're kind of messing around with each other,
Right.
even at an early age. And so I think they've done remarkably well in terms of their adaptation. A lot of people are like, oh, you homeschool, your kids
Yeah.
are pretty normal. I'm like, well, we try, it's not
Right.
like but yeah, I think this whole concept of learning outside of the home and intergenerational families is such a weird thing.
Mhm. Well, one of my things was like my youngest son, he's dyslexic,
Mhm.
and he had a lisp when he was growing up. So I would always pick on him. I would just pick on him because I wanted him to have this like this idea, like this like kind of steel trap in his head where you can fucking bully me as much as you want, but you will never say anything as mean as what my dad has said to me. And I know my dad is fucking with me, so like
Right.
nothing you can say can hurt me, And I wanted to create that because he had these mental and psychological weaknesses that I felt like he had to overcome. So in order to overcome it, I fuck with him about it, and I would make it, but I would make it a joke for him. So I'd be like, I would play like Looney Tunes, and I'd tell him to like say "suffer" and "succotash" over and over again, shit like that, like, and just to let him know that, like, hey, dude, like, it's not a big deal. It's just some fucking words. No way, they're not fucking doing anything to you. If they lay their hands on you, then you do what you got to do. But other than that,
Yeah.
man, it's all just fun and games. And if you can make fun of yourself better than anybody else can make fun of you, you're gonna have a much easier time in life.
Dude, I said that to my middle child the other day, man. And I said, hey, if you don't like people calling you names, you don't like being, picked on, all that, you need to learn how to laugh at what they're saying and then make a better joke about yourself than they can.
Right.
And it takes all the steam right out of their sails because
Right.
you've opened yourself up to criticism. People love that. I mean, that self-deprecation. Like my dad was from Flint, right? And so growing up with that guy playing sports and whatever, it was just like it was no holds barred all the time, no blood, no foul type of relationship. But there was also, hey, good job, especially when you stuck it out, and he could be kind of a pain in the ass, right? Like it was like, hey, you know what? You earn a little respect, a little bit at a time, even from, your dad and those type of situations.
Right.
And, I think it's the greatest thing is when you look back, boy, for me, now I'm still remembering situations that I was in with my dad as my kids are coming of age. And I go, oh man, I'm still learning from some of the words that he said, right? Like
Right.
it just kicks in, you're like, man, it's got a totally different dimension than it used to.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I didn't plan on talking about childbearing and raising children, but we can talk about this. So
I am barren.
they ain't mine. I ain't paying for shit.
That's right.
I used to just look at a woman, she'd get pregnant, man. I had to walk around with blinders on.
With 5 kids, I get it.
Yeah. I even have a granddaughter now, man. So she'll be 2 this year. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, man, it's pretty cool. But you do have to worry. You have to look at what's going on, and this is something my dad and I talk about a lot. Is the best way to approach the world nowadays, and in preparation for your children, and in order to raise them. And how do you best prepare them, because you're not only preparing them to deal, like when we were growing up, it was kind of like our parents were preparing us to deal with society and to put up with the struggles that society throws at us. But it really feels like nowadays almost you have to prepare your children to deal with all the crap that government throws at them. And I don't remember feeling like that was that big of a deal until I was probably in my late 30s.
Yeah. I mean, I do think the preparation has changed for sure. I think that, the idea that this world would be where it is in terms of kind of a crumbling empire of America, like in the 1980s, boy, it was kind of like that last big, puff of the chest before an old man dies, right? Like and, to have Ronald Reagan, kind of as a grandfather figure for us growing up, and we heard a bunch of amazing stuff about America, especially here in the South during those times. And you were very proud, and you never thought that, we were an empire or anything, terrible in the world. You thought that America and the people were really great. And that it was going to live on, and be the greatest country in the world. And boy, I'll tell you what, fast forward to 2021, and, I'm sitting here cheering on, the downfall of the empire itself, not the people of America, but this government has gotten crazy. I mean, to the point where, like I couldn't send my kids out into the mandatory murder cult indoctrination camps. Like, no,
Right.
like you guys don't get to go to those places. You're gonna waste your life. You're gonna be, you're gonna have to sit there for at least, I don't know, what is it, 6 hours a damn day, and hear, nonsensical tales about fiction that never happened. You're going to learn half truths. You're going to learn all of these things that, I would never, ever, even broach your. You have the basics and real history down. And, that's when, you can send them out into the world, I guess, at least cognitively, questioning what the hell are we doing? And if I have questions, yeah, maybe it is a good idea to ask dad, because dad, usually made sense, and he was pretty consistent about, all of these things across the board. And then on top of it, one of the things that I've also adopted that I didn't do as a kid, I did take a martial art, but I didn't, know about jujitsu, right? It's like,
Right.
all three of you guys are going to be able to handle yourself in any situation. And, like, sports aren't going to help you, man. Like they help you with some teamwork and shit like that. But outside of, teamwork and, kind of getting to know some people around you, like, you need to be able to hand, create space and leave bad situations in a
Right.
hurry.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. Like I've tried to do some very, different radical things in terms of parenting that were way more in line with what my grandparents did versus like what my parents did.
Yeah. Do you find that you you tend to tap into some of the lessons you learned in the military in raising your kids? Because that was one thing that I discovered when I was raising my kids was I had learned some lessons in the military that I was like, this might actually help me, and it did in my youngest son's situation. He used to just be a wild man, and like I don't blame him. I was a wild man too. So it was just like I didn't take it personally, but what I did take personally was there. It got to the point where he was getting in trouble so much that I was spanking him 4, 5, 6 times in a night after school. When I would get home from work at like 5 o'clock at night, and I would spank him like 4 or 5 times before he went to bed, and I was feeling bad about it. So one of the things I implemented was I would make him do PT. I would just put him in the push-up position until he hit muscle failure, or the electric chair up against the wall or something like that, because it was a more effective disciplinary strategy for him than the threat of a spanking. And I grew up like I just got my ass beat if I fucked up. I mean, if I get in trouble at the grocery store, my mom grabbed the closest thing to her and hit me with it. So I was hoping I was on the bread aisle. Like it was just the way it was. And so I never like looked at spanking or peaceful. I'd never even heard of peaceful parenting before 2 years ago. So it was just, you're recycling what you've been taught through your life. And the fact that I was able to take some of these lessons I did learn in the military, it's really shitty that the military is such a murder cult, as you put it, which is the best way of describing them, obviously. But it's such a disappointment because there are so many good lessons that I was able to take out of the military, and put into my everyday life. Do you ever find yourself torn with that and fighting that, having that conflict within you? Like, I learned this in the military, but this is something I can actually strategically use.
Oh no, no. I mean, I'd take the good, leave the bad. Whenever you can. It's the facts of life. Is that what they used to say?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. I mean, no. There's a lot. I mean, you talk about PT and kids, and that was one of the things that I was very in the very beginning. I was like, oh yeah, we're gonna just get strong. Like if you're gonna do this, it'll cause you a little bit of pain, but over the long run, you're gonna learn a lesson because you're not gonna want to repeat this at either the intensity or the cycle that I'm going to have you do it at, especially as a young child.
Right.
And then I think the peaceful parenting thing is not something I heard about until it was probably, I don't know, 2016, 2017, sometime when I found, I think it was either Connor Boyack or one of those guys, but it was, peaceful parenting. I grew up kind of the same ways. If I really did anything bad, which was rare, my dad kind of had this wild eye, right? It was like, I knew very clearly, he had very distinct rules, and I knew very clearly what I could and could not do. And I will say that probably was most helpful, but to take the military and apply that positive communication on top of it, where you have to, I mean, you can sit there and be speaking English, especially with kids that, are not very adept. Like, my middle son, he's left-handed and right-brained. And if you've got positive communication and they know their boundaries, I've found great success with those things. And, being a bigger, physical guy, is like, I can get pretty loud if I ever needed to. And just to be able to have that presence in front of them. And I'm not talking like, you don't ever want to like break their spirit or anything else, but they need to really understand that a dad's a dad. And there are some really, the two major rules in my house. You want to see dad flip the fuck out. It's, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. If you lay hands on each other and you guys all know how to lay hands, dad is going to be through the fucking roof, right? Like, that is, we don't do that. And then they'll learn their lesson, and like, the military taught us, I'll find, tasks for you to do, right, that just wear you out. So
Right.
we live on a mountain out here, and I've got a pretty rocky slope in the backyard that, I use as a food plot. So what I need is rocks removed and relocated into, seasonal stream beds and things like that. So, I had this one situation where, my oldest, who's 2 years older than my middle child, kind of walked out into his space, and I'm watching from my office window up here as this unfolding with a window open, and he stands in his space, and my middle child son says, "Hey, you gotta move out of here, man. You're crowding my space, and I've got some stuff going on in here that I don't want you stepping on." And I saw it unravel. He's like, "I'm not going to move." I'm trying to, the bigger son being a Billy badass for the moment, and so my middle son grabs a shovel and swings it. It stops, thank God, before he hits him.
Jeez.
But I was like, all right, here we go. And that's, those are the type of the situations where, as a parent, that's where I have to turn into the monster, right? Is like, all right, you guys want to understand what just happened? Jackson, Henry asked you, you're to basically leave his space. You were trespassing, that you weren't, giving him enough space. In real life, at 18 years old, you're going to jail, maybe prison, depending on if it's a criminal trespass or not. So you're grounded, and I've got some work for you to do. And Henry, had you followed through with what you just did, that's at least brandishing a weapon. And secondly, if you hit him with it, that's assault with a deadly weapon. You're going to prison, pal. And so you teach them about the real life consequences is if you continue this kind of behavior, be ready because you're going to live a life of misery and pain that is forced upon you by, and properly, maybe the one redeeming I guess aspect of the quote unquote state is like, hey, with violent criminals, there is a place where we can do things. But yeah, that's where I think a lot of my parenting is if you can be loud, if you can have presence, and if you can effectively communicate, which military taught a lot of that kind of stuff, reinforced it and gave you some of the finer tools to deal with it as well. So yeah, I don't feel too conflicted about it. I definitely feel like it's helped me be a better parent.
Yeah, it's one of those things I look at, and it's not the conflict of knowing that I'm teaching my children right from wrong. It's the conflict of like, yeah, I'm teaching you the rules of these murderers. I'm like I was taught this because people go out there and do really bad things,
Yeah.
and so, but yeah, like, oh geez, I remember when I was a kid, we were out playing, and my cousin, he was picking on one of his buddies, and his buddy got mad, and he smacked him upside the head with an axe handle and split his head open. Yeah. Jeez, that's where I thought the story was going.
No, thank God, no. My kids definitely know better, man. And that's the thing is they hands on is usually pretty playful. I can't think of it, but a handful of times where I think maybe my little girl was using her little girl status to get away with a couple things. That stopped. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the side of the mountain that you're using to grow crops and stuff on. So let's talk about that, because that was actually what I wanted to get you on to talk about. Like
Cool.
I said, I know you're bogged down with all this libertarian stuff. And
Yeah, I just want to be a farmer.
yeah, exactly. I just want to do my shit, man. I just want to work on my property. I don't care. Y'all do what y'all. Just leave me alone. I don't care.
Raise
what y'all
kids.
Do. Yeah.
Grow crops, hang out with some barnyard animals, and it's like, boy,
Right.
can't even get that little bit of peace, can you?
And you're a carpenter too. Is that what your trade is? Is that what you do for a living, carpentry?
So I started off in carpentry. My grandfather worked for Dow Chemical, and he could draw it, design it, build it, and then make art out of it when he was done. And so he and my dad really, I mean, they brought me up doing remodeling, all sorts of projects around the house, and things like that. And so I started out probably, I don't know, 12, 13, swinging hammers with them on job sites. And, I did that really until I was 18. So, carpentry is one of those things that I was, that I like, at the end of the day,
I
you see
enjoy it.
progress.
Mhm.
Yeah. You see progress. You've got a good project you can be proud of. And, your customer base, if they're not pleased with the work you're doing, it's one of those things where you're going to be a very hungry carpenter, right? And so that attention to detail, the tips and the tricks that old men that have been in that space for a long time and had tools develop and see the mastery of skill before you go, God, how does he do it like that? Just the finesse and things of like bricklaying or whatever it was. And yeah, that was where I think that's where a lot of the grit comes from to begin
Mhm.
with. I mean, it's just get up, bust your ass, and 5-6 days a week until you just can't do it anymore. And you get a whole bunch of skill outside of it. And I think I turned it into more of a hobby in my 20s, where we were doing things like paddle parties and all that kind of stuff. And for the Marine Corps in reconnaissance, we give what's called a full sweep to guys that's a regular oar with all sorts of intricate knots and their displays of ribbons and stuff like that. And so I had all the tools already and was, able to, whip some of these out that were really nice quality. And, I started enjoying like the different, forms of woodworking at that point. And so I just kind of did a lot more of that and started, a little side business on the side where I was making tables and adjustable desk and, doing stuff like that for people, and, that were close to me anyway,
Right. Well,
but more of a hobby.
one of the things I was thinking of earlier was we talked about how brilliant some of these kids are that are in the movement, but I think there's this a lot of them spend way too much of their time buried in books, and they're not out there building with their hands. They're not out there growing food, working in the yard, doing the things like what traditional men did. And it's not to insult them. It's just they need direction. A lot of these guys were raised without fathers, and especially in modern times. So I thought it would be interesting to talk about some little tips and tricks to getting started in working in these things, and what tools were necessary, and some of the better tools that you've found. I told my wife earlier today, I bought this battery powered DeWalt 20-volt max drill a couple of months ago because my cord drill just fried on me. It was 18 years old and it just shit out on me. So I was like, well, fuck it, I gotta go buy a drill. So I dropped $150 on this thing, and I was like, I'm knocking projects out that used to take me like 30 minutes, an hour. I'm knocking them out in 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm like, oh, Jesus, man. What did I ever do before I had this fucking drill, man?
Yeah, get a notepad, boys and girls, because I'll tell you right now, this might be one of my favorite subjects on earth is, tips and tricks and tools and all that fun stuff. Let's tips and tricks. I think your first question was, how do you get into this? I don't know. Find somebody that you can go work for if you don't need the money. I'm sure they'll pay you anyway. And, basic carpentry jobs don't pay that much to begin with.
Right.
What you're learning is a skill set. And so you'll learn everything. Like if you can work for kind of a GC, you'll kind of learn all of it, whether it's electrical work, which be very, very careful. Here's my first tip. Electrical work is really not the thing you want to start out in. When in doubt, you become the ground, and that's an electrical joke, or you get fried. So maybe don't start with electricity, right? Learn plumber and tile, you learn flooring, paint, sanding, whatever it is to really be able to take care of your own house or wherever you live and to improve it. Which I think is, like you said, it's one of those missed skill sets and arts of people, that grew up, I guess, probably in our time frame. The one, I guess, kind of move it into tools a little bit is, man, I'll tell you, I think you hit the nail on the head with the cordless drill. I also love the DeWalt, not hammer drill, but the torque drill that they've got, where if you need to take off a bolt, if you need to, get a screw out without stripping it down and getting a Torx bit for it and things like that, and be able to, do projects. One of the things that I love as a very basic tool is a chop saw. If you can get a chop saw that will bevel, I think they run about $500 or something like that. That might be one of the greatest pieces of equipment if you like to do things like, I don't know, cabinet making, if you like to do table making, like knick-knacky stuff too. A hand sander.
I was bitching earlier because last year my chop saw burned up on me, and it was one my dad had left me, and it burned up on me, and now I'm trying to cut 4x4s with a fucking skill saw.
It's a pain in the ass.
It's a pain in the fucking ass. Yeah.
I mean, the amount of throughput you can do with a good, like, up and down contractor type of, stand for that chop saw, man, you can crush projects. I mean, big ones fast with those kind of things. The hand sander, I think, is super important. Learn how to sand things the right way. Like if you can repair or make, craft, like, or just maybe even, things around the house that are rough, you can smooth them out. And it's one of the tools that I use the most. And then I think everybody needs, and I mean, everybody needs some type of Craftsman or Husky, like 200 plus piece tool set, right? With your 1/2 inch, your 3/8, and your 1/4 inch drives and your deep well sockets and things of that nature, is because you're always going to have something that maybe needs something like that. And on top of it, a wrench set as well.
And don't feel bad if you're poor and you got to piece it together.
Just fuck no, man. Yeah.
Dude, I built a cabinet in my garage to put my shit in because I had nothing to put it in because it doesn't all fit in one organized thing. So I just
Yeah.
like threw up. I had a leftover cabinet from a bathroom. I just mounted it to the wall and put it up on top of a table, and it was like, all right, that's where my tools are gonna go because it's
Yeah.
just like you got to do what you got to do. But I mean, years of collecting these tools and working with them, and you just figure it out. And one of the things I think that these kids they like to read so much. Get you a book. Like get you one of those Home Depot books on carpentry work or something like that and read through it and just kind of absorb the information. Learn how to read a tape measure. It's not real hard. The first thing I ever learned how to do was sheetrock,
Oh.
and mud. Like putting
Yeah.
up sheetrock and mudding it. That was the first thing I learned how to do.
So one of the first things I learned that I didn't like doing too.
Yeah, it's nasty. It's a dirty ass fucking job. The hardest part is cleaning up the tile after you put sheetrock up.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, maybe that's a good tip too. If you're going to get into, construction, there's a reason why people at sheetrock get paid well. There's a reason why plumbers get paid well. There's a reason why roofers get paid well because those jobs are probably some of the roughest on the job site.
Yeah, I remember. I took a job when I was 19 with the Carpenters Union in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and we were forming up the frame for the what was it? What's it called? It was the horse track down there, Delta Downs, in Vinton, Louisiana, and once we got done with the forms and we got the frame up and we started moving inside and doing the sheetrock, building the scaffolding up the walls, they were like, well, he's not 21. He can't be in here. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I ended up getting laid off. My grandpa, he's building his, he wants to put an addition on his trailer and he wants to do a 14 by 80 addition on the back. And he wants to do a 10 by 80, deck on the front. And he hired me as the general contractor. I had only been carpentry for probably like 6 months. So I'm doing all the plumbing, all the insulation. I'm framing everything out, drawing out all the blueprints and just figuring it out as I go. And there were a few of those handy Home Depot books I bought that helped me out a lot.
Heck yeah. I mean, I'll tell you what, you want to show up to a job site and you know what's in some of that material. It will help you. And, what you can't find there, I mean, YouTube, for God's sakes. I mean, if you wanted to do anything in terms of craftsmanship, man, YouTube is a fantastic place to learn everything you ever want to know and then some.
Yeah, I'm right now. I started a project this week. I'm building a high tunnel greenhouse, and I got the plans
cool.
off of YouTube. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm using cattle panel as the roof. So I built me a little box frame at the bottom, and then you just stretch the cattle panel and you curve it over, and from one end to the other, and it creates this roof. And then you throw some of those pipe insulators on the edge of the cattle panel to keep it from cutting the tearing up the greenhouse plastic. Stretch it over. Use some roofing nails to nail it down. I mean, it's really simple.
What are you using to stabilize those ribs?
I am using 2x4s.
Okay.
I'm using like I got what I did because I wasn't certain how it was going to work, right? So I wasn't certain on the tension on the cattle panels when you curved them like that. So what I did is I did a 2x12. I did 20 foot of 2x12s down the side with 22 inches 2x4s every 2 foot, right?
Okay.
And then I did a 4x4 in the middle where they pair together. So where you got your crease. So and then I did a 2x4 10 foot, 2x4 10 foot on top, because what I want to do is leave a little bit of a gap between where that 22-inch 2x4 kind of a stud comes up, and I want to have it lip down, that cattle panel lip down on there so I can nail it in there. So when I did that, I didn't take into consideration how rigid these cattle panels were. So with just a 2x4 10 at the bottom on each holding the sides together, the tops bow out. So what I'm having to do is I'm having to go back with 2x4 10s to suck the tops back in. so I can put the last couple of cattle panels in, and then I'm gonna install the door, frame the door to the sides, and then install the window and frame the window to the sides, and then I'll pull those braces out.
Yeah. Oh, that's one of those things. We just got up a garden out here, and obviously summer garden, so we don't need any of that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you, with the windy ass winters that we get up here, right, to be able to grow all year long, that's one of those things that I've been looking at building, and it's like, all right, man, like I haven't gone to Blueprint and started, crafting, what this thing is going to be, and that's another thing. I mean, as a carpenter, you'll just figure shit out, man. You'll draw stuff up. You'll go, oh yeah, this is going to get me pretty close. And then, if you're 80-90% of the way, you can figure out the rest on the fly, with a pretty limited skill set. And that's one of those things where I was like, okay, how am I going to get these things braced? Because when you look at, those, you're sitting there going, all right, I've got a span here. And, what I'm looking at is I've got great, pressure this way and that way, but I don't have anything from side to side in terms of structural rigidity. So yeah, it's one of those projects that I'm very curious about doing here in the very near future.
Yeah, I'll send you some of the YouTube videos I watched. I don't feel like they got near as in detail as they could have and should have on them, but with you having the skill set you have, you'll easily be able to see what they did and be like, oh, okay, like I can do that. It's not an issue. If I were to draw it out for somebody who had never built anything,
yeah,
I would have gone a lot more detailed. On it. See, I wish I should have, and what I might do is I should have put a 2x12 at the back, and then raise that 2x4 up to the very top, in order to create that tension to keep those cattle panels from pushing my tops out.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'm at in the project, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, well, I could suck it in with a 2x4. Once I get the window and the door framed and everything bolted, like screwed in together, like it's going to be fine. It's not going to go anywhere. The only thing I'm going to have to do is, because of where I'm at, in case of like a hurricane, I'm going to go back out there with a post hole digger, and I'm going to put 3 4x4 planks on each side and stake it down into the ground about 18 inches so it doesn't fly off. So if it tears anything up, it tears up $130 roll of plastic and not
that's right
$1,000 worth of a greenhouse.
And I forget, like living up here in the mountains, man, we don't have the natural disasters that a lot of the country has, like you guys, man. And like when you guys get hit, you guys get smacked.
Yeah. And usually it's about once every 8 years or so. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up with Harvey in 2016, and we got Laura last year. So I'm hoping it'll be a while before I have to deal with this shit ever again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, some of those places still haven't recovered from Katrina down there. So, it's like,
dude, I haven't gotten the roof back on my barn. I have
since Katrina, huh?
No, Laura tore the center portion of my barn roof off, so I have like a sunroof on my barn.
Helps with ventilation.
Now I got weeds growing out of the bucket of the tractor that hasn't run since Harvey.
Oh man, yeah, maybe that's a good thing. I mean, like considering where you could live in the United States, man, that's one of those things. Have you ever done like one of those overlays in terms of like population density, frost lines, natural disasters, and all that kind of stuff?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, North Georgia is actually a pretty good little place.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I decided to stay up here.
Yeah. I don't really have that big of an issue with Georgia. I like Georgia. I've been to Georgia quite a few times. I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with Georgia. Like I hated going to Atlanta. I always hated that. But Atlanta and Houston are basically the same fucking city. And
Houston's a monster though.
I lived there for 20, 30 years. I lived in Houston.
What do they have? 20, 30 million people there?
If you count all the suburbs, it's like somewhere like 10 million or something.
So
Insane.
it's about, I mean, all of Georgia is about I guess 10 million. So that's, I mean, that's one city for you guys, is all of Georgia. That's nuts, brother. I mean,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
kind of nuts. I mean, I think we have about 5 million ish in Atlanta, depending.
Yeah, Houston's a monster. I hated living there, man. My kids still live up there. My parents live up there. When I was on with John Odermatt the other day, he asked me, he's like, "Did you ever think about leaving the United States?" I'm like, "Dude, I have 5 kids, a granddaughter, and parents. Like this is their only refuge. If shit goes wrong in the cities, they have nowhere to go." Like,
Yeah, I mean, Texas is a pretty good place to go.
right? No, but I'm talking about my property. Like I got 9 acres. I can put them all
Oh,
up.
cool.
Yeah, I could put them all up, and we have a stocked pond in the back, and we're growing our own food, and we got chickens, and like it's like all right, like
How
whatever.
long have you had chickens, man?
Well, this is our second time with chickens. The last time a raccoon got them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I actually, we just went out and bought, like, I was like, with the price of lumber, I'm going to go look at some, some structures, like some sheds and things, and then I'll
yeah,
modify them. And we just ended up getting the chicken shack this weekend, and I've got to go out and clear a flat space on, obviously on a hill, and then, come up with a concrete pad and all that fun stuff. But the protecting those guys, is really the hardest thing about
yeah,
the entire process. I mean,
yeah.
I don't, you guys down there, you've got coyotes, and I imagine maybe even some puma or something like that out in the swamps.
We have bobcats. My uncle years ago saw a panther when he was out hunting
Yeah.
one time. We do have black bear in certain areas. I've never seen one out here, but it doesn't mean they won't come here. Um, we have we do have coyotes. We have fox. We have raccoons. And raccoons are really the bitch, man. Raccoons are smart as fuck. And
Super,
so
super smart.
yeah, yeah. So that's the really hard one. So I'm like, yeah, every time when I was over the road, every time I would come home, I would walk around the chicken coop and make sure that I'm not getting something trying to dig under
Yeah.
or tear holes in my fencing or anything like that. What I did a fully covered. I know a lot of people in different parts of the country like to leave them open. I just fucking no. I built a damn mansion over
Yeah.
them.
Not with the,
No.
I was gonna say, not with the Hawks and the Eagles up here,
Yeah.
man. There's no way.
Yeah, no, and then see, I had ducks last year, and
Mhm.
I put them out on my pond, and within 2 months, an owl got them.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so we have all sorts of predators around here, so you have to take that into and then I have 2 pit bulls who would love to have their way with any kind of fowl they could get their hands on. So, but it was funny a while back. I was going into the chicken coop to do something, and I had my hands full trying to get in there. I think I was carrying their big thing of food in there to fill up their food, and one of my dogs jumped in behind me, and then he's and the chickens went nuts and took off running, and he stood there and he looked up at me like, "Now what do I do?" And I was like, "Now you get the fuck out."
Yeah. Yeah. No, but I mean, you want to talk about great survival, man. Those guys, what do you get, about an egg a day out of most of those?
They haven't started laying yet. They should start laying here in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You guys are transferring in as way with the pullets at that point.
Yeah, we brought
When
them
you got
in.
'em?
Well, 5 of them were. Five of them
Yeah.
were. We had bought 6 to begin with. We had gotten 2 Cornish, 2 Brahma, and 2 Bantam, and they're all. I bought them in late March, early April, so they should start laying pretty soon.
Yeah.
And then I bought 6 Dominiques a few weeks back, and they were almost as old as my other ones. I think they were 2 months old when I bought them. So they're going to be they're going to be cycling a little bit behind. But if anybody's looking at raising chickens, I would tell you this from my experience, what I've been dealing with the chickens. If you want meat, get Cornish and just power feed the fuck out of them, because they grow like monsters fast. They grow fast as shit. My Cornish, she's such a goddamn fat ass. She won't even roost, man. She just lays on the ground.
You got
She
a
doesn't
brooding
even
hen, huh?
Dude, she doesn't even have feathers on her stomach, man. She just lays on the ground all the time. That's all she does. And she lays in front of the food or the water. She's nowhere else. And then but my Brahma and the Dominiques are growing nicely. They're going to be probably, I think they get like at 3 years old they're about 12 pounds, which is pretty much when you want to start slaughtering them. But the Cornish, if you're looking for meat, man, you can start slaughtering these things at like 3 months. I mean, she was probably 8 pounds at 6 months or 3 months. You know, like she just grew and grew and grew, and she's just this big fat ass. You know, it's like, well, if I ever want to make foie gras, I'm just gonna like figure out how to do it out of a chicken. I'm gonna do it out of a Cornish with this lazy ass bitch.
That's the Texas way to do it anyway, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, duck and goose. Whatever. You fucking fancy motherfuckers. but yeah, it's. I think the people. I think kids nowadays, man, they're afraid to involve themselves in these projects, and I don't know if they're afraid of failure. I haven't figured out. Like failure is a big thing, you know, like it's something that I think all of us have to learn to deal with, you know, and I wonder if some of these there was this trend of helicopter parenting that was going around. I haven't been around parents in quite a while, so they may still be doing it, but it seemed like parents were really afraid to let their kids fail. And I'm wondering if this created just kind of this psychology in these kids to not get involved in these things because you're naturally going to fail when you're doing this. But having this sustainable lifestyle, it's ultimately what your goals should be, right? And not depending on fiat currency, you know, like everybody's working to make more money, but nobody's working for survival anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's very near, and that's the thing is, I think with kids who are younger, right, like not quite 10 yet, it's been on my mind for a long time, and I don't know, maybe I'm just one of those nesting type of guys. It's like, I'm going to make sure that these guys have the absolute best chance if there is a decay in society, which as libertarians we've seen on the horizon for a long time. And so right. Prepare to fail, but failing's fun, man. Like if you can, that's the one thing I try to instill in my kids. It's like, look, guys, don't ever be afraid to fail. Like fail forward and fail often and learn quick, right? If you can do those things, you got a really good chance of not only being successful, but surviving. That's that's what your ancestors have done for millennia, for God's sakes. So yeah, you'll do, if you're doing things, especially homesteading, you're going to fail. Like you are going to sit there at a project and go, son of a bitch. And then you'll get to the next project and you'll go, son of a bitch. And then you'll get to the next project and the same thing, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And you got to come back, whether it's running into town to, grab a supply or some shit or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, you'll start knocking things out and things start improving. And as you go on in your years, you start to go, holy hell, man, look at some of this kind of stuff. Or, you've been, so nose to the grindstone in it. You'll have friends that you haven't seen in years, maybe come out to your place and they're like, what is going on out here? Right. And you're like, oh, you guys aren't doing this shit back home. Right? So yeah, no, it's cool, man. It's if you're out there, it's not, you don't think you're gonna do it overnight, right? Like it's a lifestyle. Right. And the more you do, the more you'll plan, and the better you'll get at this.
You're going to kill a bunch of fucking plants. It's gonna happen. You're gonna build a building that and the walls aren't gonna be square. It's gonna happen. Your door's not going to sit on the hinges properly. It's going to happen. I don't know what to tell you. You just have to figure it out. It's just, it's one of those things, like, unless you do it and you actually do it, you'll never figure out, like, oh, this is what I did wrong. Right. I told my wife earlier, it was raining this morning when I woke up, and I was like, well, it's raining outside, so she wanted to do curtains in front of our closets because the type of sliding doors we had, they don't make them anymore. And I would have had to get them specially made. And then I would have had to get these tracks designed and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't want to spend all that money. And she was like, well, just throw curtains up. I was like, okay, that'll take me 5 minutes. I went and grabbed a couple of drill bits, and I knocked it out. And I come walking out of the room, and she goes, what are you doing? I was like, I'm done. And she's like, really? I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go put a door frame together for the greenhouse. And she goes, okay. So I go outside, I fucking knock the door frame out in like just a couple of minutes. And I come back inside. She goes, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm done. I'm gonna have a beer now. You know, like whatever.
Yeah, maybe that's another tip is always act busy around your wife because she'll find some shit for you to do, right?
Well, hey man, in my door frame for the first time in my life is perfectly square, 35 inches up top, 35 inches at bottom. I can't be happier about it. But you know what? It's been years of doing these side projects and messing with this stuff that I've learned to do it, you know? Yeah. I mean, whenever I was putting my chicken coop together, my whole plan was to put fence pickets along the backside and along this side, and then doing the chicken fencing around the other two sides. So they had plenty of shade, plenty of places to sit. And I'm working with bowed 4x4s that have been sitting in the ground for probably 15 years. So it was like, whatever, I just got to work around it, like whatever. So I got gaps. They have like little windows in the corners, you know? It's like, okay, like fine. It works. It keeps shit out, man. That's all I care about. It's functional, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you get it into a very, very much that's your entire life is how functional is this going to be when I'm done with it, right? Like that you know, that function bit is live and die kind of stuff.
Yep, it sure is, man. But hey, we've been going over an hour, and I don't want to keep you too long. I know you got other stuff to do. You're a busy guy. So what you got your last words you want to put out there?
Hey, I mean, Tommy, this is not, you know, I didn't know what to come into in this show, and I'm pleasantly surprised, man. So thank you for having a really good conversation, you know, different from a lot of the stuff I get to talk about. This is really kind of a breath of, you know, fresh air, so to speak.
Yeah, man, I fucking get tired of hearing about libertarian politics. Just quit talking to me about it.
You guys know the story. What else you guys got? What else do you guys do in your life? You know, like you guys listen to rock and roll. What do you listen
to? Exactly. I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell people. Yes, it's like the days of our lives. Sands through the hourglass. I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yeah, no, I
the shit will never get better, man. It's politics. It's never getting better.
Tell there's just no more of it.
All right, well, plug whatever you got to plug, man.
Oh man, you guys know where you can find me. I'm all over Twitter. And if you ever, you know, if you haven't come across the page, it's radicalpod.com. I try to have a mostly fun time over there when reporting terrible shit. So.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, dude. I really appreciate it.
Oh, humbled, Tommy. Thank you so much, brother. Take care, man.
All right, man. You too.
Peace.
So much of the focus of my podcast is to point out abuses of power and how bad things have gotten and the direction in which we're heading as a society. And it can be a real black pill. I've partnered up with Richard Grove to offer my listeners an opportunity to sign up to his Autonomy Course. The Autonomy Course is designed for people looking for solutions, people that want to shape their own future, people that are not willing to be at the behest of large corporations or the United States government or the banking system. The Autonomy Course is designed for those of you who wish to have complete control of the reins of your life, who are looking to be successful, to thrive and not just survive, to provide for your family by utilizing your existing skills and learning how to market and sell those skills in order to be your own boss, or learn new skills in order to leverage that into a new career opportunity. So if there's a job out there you've been trying to get or you've been wishing you could get, but you just don't have the skills for it, the Autonomy Course is the place for you to start, to learn how to land that position, to learn how to market yourself better, to gain confidence, and to be surrounded by a community of like-minded people that will encourage you and help you along the way. So use my affiliate links and go check out the Autonomy Course. It could be right for you.
Play this game of pick and choose. Well, it's a game that was made for you to lose. It doesn't really matter how many times, it's the same old worn out stories, same old lines. They're all pointing dirty fingers in hypocrisy, bragging on their feats of mediocrity again. Never really making any kind of change, but they keep on getting re-elected, and I find that strange. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedoms. Yeah, I said fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedoms. What's it gonna take for you to see that we're living in a rigged democracy? People stand in line for the views that they've been choosing, paying no attention to the rights they keep on losing. But they all gather in the rallies and they chant their names, on goddamn well that it's all gonna be the same. Just 4 more years of war and taxes, 4 more years of them grinding down their axes. And that's why I say fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedoms. Yeah, fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them. I never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedoms. Cause we don't even need them, we'll never celebrate the tyrants that are taking our freedom. Fuck them, don't feed them, cause we don't even need them, we'll never celebrate the tyrants that are taking